Titans Season 4 had a fantastic opening. This season immediately adopts a grim and dismal tone, demonstrating once more how this show improves with each passing season. Titans Season 4 Episode 1 opens with Grayson and Corey reflecting on how fortunate they were to survive Season 3. The latter feels liberated and as though a burden has been removed from her. After rescuing Gotham, they now face their most difficult test: achieving a high bowling score. But when Bruce calls, he arranges for Connor to travel to Metropolis and meet his father Clark Kent. Bruce says there will be some surprises while they are traveling to Star Labs. As he does, Lex Luthor emerges from the shadows, determined to surpass Superman in strength and engaging in some rather shady cultist business. The group travels to Star Labs, where they encounter Bernard Fitzmartin, the man in charge of special projects, after arriving in Metropolis. Connor and Grayson are made to wait as the others are escorted further inside the lab, even though they had been expecting the Titans. Superman isn't there, and Bernard has awful news. He has, however, left a note regretting his actions and expressing a desire to see Connor soon. With goggles on, they can see Superman traveling through space in real time as he heads to Q4, where he plans to try to save an entire galaxy from destruction. Bernard has been using Star Labs to test Superman's abilities. Tim is given some instruction while the rest of the Titans assist, and Bruce Wayne upgrades the group's transportation by giving them a brand new automobile. But all of a sudden, the electrics start to malfunction. Lex Luthor is in it. Connor and the others should be at Lexcorp, in his opinion. As the only person Bruce Wayne was terrified of, according to Grayson, Lex Luthor is dangerous and shouldn't be trusted. Naturally, Corey arrives on the scene by herself and casually wipes off all of Lex's security personnel. When Lex Luthor finally gets a chance to speak with her, he brings up the power dynamics Corey had with her sister and decides they have a lot to talk about. He agrees to show her around, and as they sit and talk about what he wants with Connor, Corey disorients him by sneaking a little drone onto a nearby laptop. In addition to granting Connor advice and the authority to take over Lexcorp, Lex informs Corey that he wants Connor to stay. This facade is exposed to Corey, who thinks Connor is merely attempting to exert control over him and turn him into a personal weapon. Interestingly, when Lex looks through his telescope, he sees Grayson and instantly understands what is happening. As everything starts to fall apart, he says, "Remember Richard, this is me, being gentle." He is aware that Grayson is distantly listening. After that, a large group of ninjas arrive and start attacking Grayson. Tim waits back and searches for a chance to enter, which he eventually does, aiding in the defeat of their adversaries. Grayson tells Connor exactly what Lex has promised, including 6 months to work with him, despite coming away unscathed. Connor rejects Grayson's advice to back out of this because he wants to know what his true purpose is and is determined to discover his parents. He's going to try this, even if it's a huge trap or he absolutely fails. Connor finds out that Luthor is struggling and is actually dying when he gets at Lexcorp. He has looked for a remedy, but so far, his efforts have been fruitless. Connor is further cautioned by Luthor to use caution, warning him that if he makes a mistake, others may not view him favorably. According to Lex, the only person that doesn't judge him for who he is him. Lex developed Superboy in order to fulfill his desire to become Superman. He had a son and wanted him to achieve where he had failed, to toe the lines between being a man and being Superman. Connor makes a decision and chooses to remain loyal to Lex. After this is resolved, Lex Luthor mentions a project he has been working on and for which he needs assistance. There are bizarre, archaic markings on a book on the table and a familiar bird-like cultist mask. Lex Luthor vomits all over the floor and then starts bleeding from the mouth. An enormous snake that attempts to bite Connor emerges from his mouth. While Rachel feels the effects and starts screaming as well, Connor uses his powers to destroy it. Armed guards hurry in after finding Lex Luthor dead, and they immediately believe Connor committed a crime. Mr. Bennett, the employee who Lex fired earlier in the episode, laughs and responds that someone always has to pay, while he holds up his hands and concedes. Titans Season 4 Episode 2 opens with another bizarre murder. A masked man wearing the same bird mask as earlier appears in a calm suburban home, seemingly out of nowhere. He murders the mother, and when it comes to the daughter, a spiritual figure pursues her, but before we learn what happened, screaming can be heard. Connor is being detained in the meantime for the murder of Lex Luthor. He complies and is then led into the detention facility, where a menacing green light keeps his powers in check. Connor is startled when Grayson and Corey appear and offer to assist him. He informs them that he has never seen such strength. Connor has accepted his destiny because he was exposed at the scene, but Corey tries to comfort him that this is not the end of the matter. To try to liberate him, they'll gather proof. In an effort to determine who killed Lex Luthor and uncover whatever secrets he could be holding, Corey and Grayson decide to collaborate. When Corey pursues a tip, she ends up in Lex's estate where she meets Nelson Blake, who reveals that other people also perished that night. In actuality, all of Luthor's close friends and family members passed away. The sole person still alive, Blake, informs them that Luthor was studying Corey before changing his strategy and deciding to battle death itself, joining up with a number of other cultists, including an archaeologist woman, perhaps Mrs. Bennett. They were fiddling with stuff they weren't supposed to. Nelson suddenly hears a strange chanting and starts spitting blood. With that, Nelson opens his lips and a snake emerges, just like Luthor. Corey handles things quickly. In particular, Rachel and Grayson look for information about the crime scene and its connections to the cultists we have previously seen within LexCorp. They eventually arrive at the identical house from the chapter's first scene, thanks to a vision Rachel had. The party splits up to search each room for clues, while the radio continues to play menacingly in the kitchen. While Rachel discovers the mum's body in the kitchen, leaned up against the island, Grayson sees a bloody apple on the floor. The young child is still breathing up top in her room, mired in a nightmare. Rachel makes the decision to assist and utilizes her abilities to rescue the girl by entering her dreams. Here, she reveals her identity to be Arya, and Rachel is able to protect her from the bizarre cultist wearing a bird mask who is pursuing her. This episode also features a bit more of Sebastian, who leaves for a large gaming pitch but finds that the people there aren't really enthusiastic about his idea. He makes a pitch for his community-driven game, but his enthusiasm is ineffective. They offer him a flimsy smile and inform him that he is not a good fit in the market. Sebastian then has visions in which he sees both men and women with blood running down their faces. Given that the taxidermist Fox experienced the same thing in the last episode, with blood coming out of his mouth, this is obviously not an unique incidence. The Titans find several victims being held hostage in an abandoned warehouse, which brings up the topic of blood. Fortunately, they're all still around. The man with the bird mask attacks Rachel, but she manages to stop him. But it's insufficient. She hears echoes of something that's still hiding in the shadows, but it appears and then vanishes just as fast. Whatever the case, this appears to be sufficient to free Connor. Given that he has experienced the loss of his parents, Grayson speaks to Arya as a result of this and confides in her. He talks about Bruce and how she would feel better with time, just like he did. Arya receives Grayson's jacket when he turns it over to her. Given the gruesome crime scene and the fact that the police are learning more about this case while Connor is off the hook, Grayson informs Connor of their findings and the scene's gory details. Connor grits his teeth and tells him he never wants to go back to Metropolis after seeing the deaths and the horrific scene. However, a sorceress approaches them as they leave and quickly dispatches Connor, sending him flying across the road. The chakra-like crystal on Rachel's forehead vanishes, and her hair turns white as she is knocked out and mysteriously loses her ability. Fortunately, Corey intervenes to prevent the adversary from exploding into nothingness and saves the day. Unfortunately, the cultist from the last episode, whom we saw Luthor examine, returns with others to the basement. They start chanting as they get ready for the next step in their strategy. Their actions cause Sebastian, who is still having hallucinations and is somehow connected to everything, to hear the echo of their voices. The connections to this cult are therefore deepened in the second episode, and it appears that Rachel's abilities are connected to this, although, to be honest, it comes as no surprise given what we already know about her and her connections to the dark arts. Characters like Gar have had very little to do thus far in the season, which means it hasn't fully lived up to what we've seen in the past. But perhaps that will change in the upcoming episode.